Okay, right, we are live over there now. So the plan will be... Okay, so you should be able to see that. I can see you. Life is good. Thank you, Wicked. Yeah, I'm like... trying to multitask this, and it's really... my brain and my left and my right brain is not dealing with all the things that are in front of me very well. So I've got the YouTube running. There probably won't be anybody over there, but the thing is, what happens is you get the views afterwards, and so one needs to keep pushing for the YouTube channel to keep growing. It is actually growing quite nicely. It's having a nice little growth spurt, so all is going well over there. But as I was talking about this, and as this is one I'll be following through because it is a mass shooting, it is a school shooting. As for those who know, that's one of the areas of interest that I have. I have very many, but mass shootings is one of them. And obviously, again, we have a youngster involved here, and a trial possibly, unless he takes a plea deal. We don't know. There's always time for a plea deal. Yeah, it's just so slow, Wicked, like it's painfully slow. But the thing is, I notice if I don't show up to my YouTube channel, it's not going to grow, is it? If I don't put the stuff out there, it's not going to grow. So if I do a video and stuff, it'll grow. It's just a slow progress. But if I make sure I'm on there at least once every other day to start with, I mean, once a day would be great. But I mean, hey, it's been great with my presence. We've had two today, two YouTube visits. This is kind of what it looks like behind the scenes. So I can see that there's two people over here on YouTube. Name's Queenie. Have a question. Go for it, Queenie. Hey. So that's what it looks like behind the scenes for me in my little studio. There's me over there. There's the screen. It tells me who's there, and it shows me the comments. Not that you need to see any of that. What's that one? Make sure I've not missed any questions. Got to just keep pushing with the YouTubes there, haven't we? So we know yesterday was a dark day for the Apalachee High School in Georgia. There was a mass shooting. 4 people sadly died. There was many others injured. When I say it was about maybe 9 or possibly 10, we don't know the ins and outs of those. And it's really just a sad situation that we're in, isn't it, at the moment, where I literally see a video on Law and Crime today, and this is my problem with the gun laws, right? There's a guy who has shot his wife because she was having an affair. He only gets 10 years because it's a bit of a passion crime. Like, I'm sorry, what? I think we need to ditch crime of passion, right? Because murder is murder, passion or no passion, right? But this guy has just gone out the back, wherever this pew is, and he's out on his driveway, aiming at his wife, shouting and talking, and they're going back and forth. And then he unalives her. And this is the problem with the weapon situation you guys have got. You can have a perfectly normal, sane person, and then the crime of passion kicks in. Your partner's having an affair, the passion kicks in, and next thing you know, that person is deceased. Why are people not able to see that when they push that the gun laws should be still there? You should still have the right to bear arms. Let me just say, if you take the arms off your neighbours and your friends, and yes, you'll get the odd gangster, and I use gangster lightly, that'll have the odd one. But overall, your gun crime is going to drop massively. And then you might say, well, AD, the knife crime goes up. Crime is going to be crime. We're never going to fully eradicate it. So holding a pew is not going to eradicate crime. And all the pew pew events that I've ever seen has never helped anyone to have the right to bear it. The only issue I see is the persons that are getting killed by them. And yet the right to bear still takes a precedence. Scary. And the thing is, the people that want the right to bear arms means that they absolutely will use that arm. They will use that weapon. They absolutely will. Scary. Scary. I live in my little place, and my neighbours, they don't have them in their homes. And the woman across the way doesn't have hers. And none of us hold them here. So none of us are going to go firing off at each other in across the way, and that, are they? We just ain't going to do that. That's how it works. Thank you, Hannah. Thank you. Welcome, Boop. Evening. So again, you've got to look at the way things around the world are working, and if things are kind of working, they're working. And now your knife crime, right? Like I said yesterday with the knife crime situation, the thing with the knife crime is that if you've got cutlery and a turkey carving one, then you are going to never eradicate the knife crime, right? Unless we are all having plastic forks and knives for Christmas dinner, and that you can only carve a turkey once it's cooled down with your bare fingers. Yes, Boop. Yes. Boop's pulling her turkey apart with her bare fingers. So that is an issue for me, right? I can't understand it. Now, I listened to a video today by a young girl at this school. Now, apparently, this young girl, it's on my backup account, which is this one. I just posted it in its raw form. She basically was at school. She got a toilet pass, went to the toilet, came out, and basically ended up somehow coming face to face with the shooter. And she said she just panicked. She didn't know what to do. And then all of a sudden, a policeman charged her back somewhere into the toilet. And I'm just like, can you imagine at that age having to deal with that? And then reliving that trauma of looking him in the eyes. And that's because people are selfish. And that probably ain't going to sit very well, is it? But thanks, Mama Free. Thank you, Boop. Thank you, everyone. It's just not going to sit well when people say, what are you going to do for your kids? Oh, anything. I will do anything. Will you disarm yourself? Absolutely not. No. Okay, what about palm prints, fingerprints, so that only you, the adult, can get the weapon? And there's about 1,000,001 excuses why that can't be done either. So I'm just like talking to a brick wall. And then you'd be like, they'd be like, well, AD, I might get burgled, might have a home invasion. And I'm like, oh, okay. So in your lifetime, from childhood to now, how many home invasions have you had? Personally, none. In your 40 years of life, your family, your mum, your dad, you living at home, and you've never had a home invasion, and yet you have a pew pew at your home, just in case you might happen to have one, which if you were both disarmed and you weren't allowed pew pew, there'd be alternative ways that you could fight them off. And then if you gave me the choice between having a weapon and saying, hey, your choice is you run from the bullet of this weapon or you run from a knife, I'd be like, mate, I'm going to give it the knife a go because I could probably outrun the knife, but I can't do the pew pew. Sorry, but that's just not the way this works, is it? Any gun, any weapon is powerful. And the sad thing is now, with this case, we are back where the Crumblies were, where we went through the trial. We watched the trial for the Crumblies, and it was a landmark, wasn't it? Because at the end of the day, the parents were tried for not protecting their son from weapons and giving he had mental health. Now, some people may agree with that, and people that are completely bonkers will not agree with that in case it ever happens to them, I guess, and that it's their kid that gets the weapon and does something like this, because of course they wouldn't want to be punished for it. Well, I say, if you have a weapon in your home that you've not appropriately kept away from your child, that you have actively taught your child how to use for hunting and they've been able to access it, or you buy them one, despite knowing that there was threats to schools before by this person, but you go and buy them one as a birthday gift, well, you deserve to go to prison for a lot of years, because you didn't protect them, you didn't keep them away, and you bought them one for a gift for a 14-year-old. Come on now. It's just an old law that was passed back in the day where you have the right to bear arms. It wasn't amendable. It can't be amended with the changes. It didn't take into account people's mental health as they get older. It doesn't take any of that into account, and people are stuck on that law because it's there, written in black and white. It's their right. They think it's their right and it should never be revoked. But I'm sorry. I understand that guns do not do this on their own. They don't get up one morning and think, right lads, come on bullets, let's go. We are going to the school and we're going to do this. Right, the gun doesn't do that. I appreciate that. And the problem that you've got in today's society is the fact that you cannot trust the person with it. You can't trust your neighbours with a weapon. You can't trust the old fella up the road with a weapon. You cannot trust a soul, right? Because although they might be fine at the time they get the weapon, and their mental health might be, floating up there with the best of them, and they're okay, nobody knows what's going to trigger the button for it not to be okay, and then for somebody to lose their life. It's like Sonia Massey. Now, again, she was just in her home. She was doing absolutely nothing wrong. She called them because she thought she'd heard an intruder. So she'd done all the right things. And she ended up at the hands of a police officer, clearly triggered by something. He ends up shooting her in the head. And that's just somebody that's been trained to be cool, calm, and collective in these situations. Thank you, Boop. So, I don't understand. I don't know why it is necessary. It's crazy. Because, like I said, that couple, the woman who got shot by the husband, she had an affair. Now, that doesn't warrant that she gets unalived by a pew-pew, does it? Absolutely not. But that was enough to trigger the dude to lose his shit and take her life there and then, instantly, with a massive weapon, waving it at her in the driveway. Like, what the hell? It's not okay. It was an appalling incident, but here's the thing. When you give an adult that that might be okay, if they've had any traumatic brain injuries. I mean, look at Robert Card, the mass shooter for where oh bloody hell, where did he come from? Brain freeze. Hey Macy. Robert Card. Oh my god, Jesus take the wheels. Wait, welcome Paul to the team. Oh bloody hell, off my head. Yes, the dad bought him a pew-pew as a gift. A 14-year-old with the hormones raging through him. So you are correct when you say it's not the weapon that does it. But it's the people that do it, that get the weapons, that are bloody dangerous, that have mental health. Mental health is at an all-time high, and it doesn't take much in a person's mental health for something to trigger the unalivement. Okay, it really doesn't. The sad thing is, let me just go back to the studio quickly. How come the son only has 4 charges of murder and the father has more charges? That's a good question. I'm hoping that this is going to show us. I'm not 100% sure because I'm not a legal, but I did think that when I heard the outcome, because the dad's got the attempted murder. But again, thank you, Boop. Boop needs me on a treadmill. Maine, that's the one, Jenny. Thank you. Yeah, I'm not 100% sure on that, Queenie, but I will. If you can't see who I'm talking to, it's because I'm flitting between TikTok and YouTube. I will find that. I will find that out. I'm not 100% because even he, Colt, is going to have attempted unaliving charges because he attempted to unalive the others that were injured. So I'm not 100% sure. Hey, Haley, thank you, Paul. So yeah, again, main mass shooter had a traumatic head injury, it seems. And people were not expecting him to sort of do this, but then he went off the rails a little bit, and then he did this, and so it is the person behind the weapon. The weapon is a lethal object at the end of the day. So my argument for that is going to be, I feel if the gun laws were stricter, there was something's got to change and someone's got to give. But the sad thing is, the gun owners, they don't want to give a little bit. Even though they'll say, I'll do anything for my child, I'll do anything for my children, they actually won't when it comes down to it. And people can probably come for me for that because it's true, you know. I know, I weren't sure if you wanted me to say that over here on the YouTubes. It is sad, Marshall. It is. And the thing is, as well, you know, like, it's becoming normal for your kids to have to get up for school, put on their bulletproof backpack, or go to school and have another drill, because the drills are very, very important, and more so every day. And what to do, who to call, how to do these things in an emergency, which, if you've never been in an emergency, that's a frightening situation to be, because everything you learn goes out of the window. Thank you, Boop. But on this account, for something like this, you've got to think, okay, so kids are growing up fearful that they might not go home, or they pray that they get to go home every day after school because they're so frightened that this type of incident can happen, rightly so, because it's very high in terms of stat wise. Now, I did pull up some stats. Hang on, let me just. Is it this one? So in 2014, so this is incidences where 4 or more people are killed. So just under 300 incidences with mass shootings in 2014. In 2015, it's just over the 300. Then in 2016, it goes up again, so just under 400. So you can see the impact of these is changing. Like, the stats are going up. The people's people can't afford to live. People can't afford to feed their families. Life is stressful, and then they grow up with a whole bed of anxiety as they're growing up because they are anxious that these bad things are going to happen, and that they're in this heightened state of, am I going to get home today? Is there going to be a school shooting, etc., etc.? And then obviously when there is, it then puts more fear into them. And then obviously they're going to grow into adults, probably with anxiety and other mental health issues. Like in 2017, it slightly dropped a little bit, and again in 2018. But if you ask me, that 300 plus is far too many mass shootings, right? Because this is in a year. This is a year of these incidences of 4 people or more passing away. Then in 2019, whoosh, we just hit over the 400 mass shootings. Then in 2020, look at the jump from 2019 to 2020. It jumps from just over 400 to just over 600 incidences of mass unalivings. And then in 2021, we're just under 700. So you're not getting too far away from 1,000 mass shooting incidences. Yeah, I mean, and it shouldn't be seen as the norm. Then it's come down a little bit. Then it slightly goes up again in 2023, but it's remained high regardless, the highest being 2021. Now, bearing in mind, we had COVID in this period of time as well. So how is it this high? Now, obviously in 2022, we're just in the start of September. It's on 385 mass shootings already. Like, September, October, November, December. And these are the ones that we are hearing about. And these are the incidences with weapons that have involved the unaliving of 4 or more people. So what about all the ones where there's 3 people that were died, that perhaps was meant to be more than 3 people? What about, the firearms at home? Like, this is just this on that scale for that level. It's scary. And because these kids are then growing up fearful, the danger is you're impacting their mental health already, aren't you? The mental health is just hitting rock bottom. And who's to blame then? The parents for not, I don't know, educating their children, not keeping the weapons protected from them, when in the reality is the generations of people we've got now are very for having their weapons and don't believe in disarming, and so they take that back through their kids, and then their kids grow up. But the thing is, they're choosing, these children are then targeting others in these incidences, and then they become dangerous people because, yeah, we know it's happening, and yeah, we can talk about it, but still it's just so difficult, because as they're growing into adulthood, it's because I'm talking again. If you don't know, on YouTube, by the way, when I talk, I yawn. It's just a whole thing. It is a crazy amount, Faithless. It is. And so they're growing up with their childhood anxieties and mental health issues, but then they grow into adult ones as well. So all these pressures, and then that passes down from generation to generation. And I honestly don't know. I honestly fear for you in the US. I'm not going to lie. Even if you had strict gun laws, right? Like, we've got them here. Like, we've got them. We learned from ours. We had one mass school shooting, and we haven't had another one. But there has been incidences where licensed gun holders, again, they have to be approved and registered to be able to hold these weapons. Well, they're holding the weapons, and they have clear bills of health. But one day something just snaps in one of them, and then we get the Plymouth mass shooter who goes on the rampage out and about. We have Ralmo that goes out on a little rampage, but there was years in between those unalivings. It wasn't like it was every other day. There was a massive gap between them. And then there was Derek Bird, who was much earlier on. And I think from Derek Bird, there was more changes made. And then Michael Ryan, who went round Hungerford. If you've not heard that, we watched the Hungerford, we watched Derek Bird, we went through those. We watched that McDonald's one. Oh, that was an old one. We couldn't watch the whole thing because it's quite graphic. So I wouldn't be able to show it on TikTok. But if you haven't seen the McDonald's mass shooting, of course it's an old one, but we'll give you a trigger warning. They do go in the McDonald's, the police, and they are filming. And you do see a small baby and its parents, and just blood everywhere, people dead on the floor. And that is, I think it's called in under 12 minutes or something. There was a child shot on his bike outside. He was out there with his friend, and these things we've watched and seen some of these things. Obviously, when they're graphic, we don't watch the whole thing. We skip a fair bit, but again, it's just interesting, isn't it, that the type of person that went in to do that kind of crime, why he did it and how he did it and what drove him to do it, and that is the question. So when I was at CrimeCon last year, obviously I can't go this year because Adeline and Cora have different ideas. When I was there last year, the woman from the US, I think she's been in an interview, I'm sure it's her, she's an ex-FBI detective person. She comes in to these places and gives talks on mass shootings and what can and can't be done. Thank you, Reform. Thank you. And she was like, well, you see, and she was coming at it from a pro gun, I think, because she's like, me and my friends, we have weapons, but we wouldn't dream of doing anything like that. And I sat there and I thought, that's great while you're okay and you're mentally well. But one of your friends who's a detective, you lock it all away and you're very, you know what you're doing, you're clever, you put your gun away at the end of the day. But if your friend loses his Cocoa Pops and then suddenly snaps, and then he takes his anger out on a school or cinema or a store, what do you say then? Well, we never saw that coming because, he's an ex-FBI person. He wouldn't ever do that. Something in him just snapped. And that's the thing. Something in anybody can just snap. Just like that. Thank you, Clint. And so my argument still remains to this day that you guys, I feel for you. You need to change your laws. You guys need to do something because this is never going to stop. And I think people should be made to watch and listen to things that will haunt them. If they're so arrogant as to think, well, nothing needs to change, I'm not giving up my gun, my gun's too important, then they need to be forced to sit in a courtroom. You should be forced to watch something like Parkland, where there's filming going on inside the classroom. You can see there's children that have been injured, unalived, teachers, they're all in there. And then there's a lad who is crying out to get help, and no one will go and help him because they can't tell if he's the shooter or not. And if you absolutely think that that's okay and you would still rather hold your weapon, then I think you actually need to go and see it for real. Like, I think you need to go and sit in the courtroom, go through the autopsy pictures. Yeah, it won't be bloody nice for you, but I think you need to see it. And I think you need to see the families that have been affected by these incidences, because they're the ones that have got to live without their loved ones as a result of what's happened. And just imagine if it's your child, your teenager, that gets shot in the leg or wherever this lad was shot, and he's crying for help. And the teachers in the classroom are going, no, we can't open the door because we don't know if he isn't the shooter. A, that leaves him fully exposed for the shooter to come back and finish him off if that's what he wants to do. But B, he's left out there injured, bleeding and scared and on his own. And if you think that's cool, then and your right to carry still outweighs that could have been your child, and his parents will have had to have listened to that recording as well, then Thank you, Clint. He has sent us a treasure box. Thank you for the heart me's. I was on a little rant, and as I go on my little rants, I have to keep in with the flow, otherwise I forget. So we are going to watch the hearing, which is today. The first one, I believe, is Colt. The second one is going to be his dad. And then, like I said, the Crumbleys, they essentially enabled him to be able to carry that weapon. And now they're paying the absolute price for it. Thank you, Clint. And I think this is the way it should be for everyone. So make sure as well, guys, just in case we get axed, you need to be following me over here. This is the backup account for AD Investigates, which is me. And this is the backup. So if we get knocked off, this is where we go. And if you don't follow it, you won't know. Thank you, Vicky. Right, let me press play.
And good morning, everyone. My name is Curry Mingledorf. I'm assigned to preside over this morning's proceedings. We're here for a limited purpose this morning. I do want to note for everyone's benefit that there is, as everyone certainly is aware, considerable interest in what has occurred in our community in the last several days. For that reason, the court has seen fit under Rule 22 of the Uniform Superior Court rules to allow media outlets to record some of these proceedings. However, under those rules, the court has set in place certain limitations, and I just want everyone to know that the media has been informed of that, and I'm confident that they will comply with that. But otherwise, there is to be no filming or recording by any members of the public or any other individual other than those authorized specifically by the court in its signed ruling. Are we ready, counsel, to begin and bring the defendant in?
State's ready, Your Honor.
All right.
Defense is ready.
All right. All right, good morning, sir. Are you Mr. Colt Gray?
Sir.
My name is Curry Mingledorf. I'm assigned to preside over this morning's proceedings. Mr. Gray, I do need to inquire as to whether you're able to read and write the English language.
Yes, sir.
All right. I also want to inform you, I want to ask you, do you understand that you have the right to be represented by an attorney in these proceedings?
Yes, sir.
And you are, in fact, represented today, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And Mr. Zane Harmon, you're here on behalf of this defendant, is that right?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right. And you understand that you have the right to be continuously represented throughout this proceeding. And if you cannot afford to hire counsel, then this court is obligated under the Constitution to provide counsel for you without cost to you. All right. I am going to inform you of a few other matters. And I'm not going to ask you anything, just inform you.
You can't afford the attorney, don't do the crime.
I want to make sure that you are aware that you have the right to remain silent. You don't have to say anything at all. And it's important to understand that because anything you might say could be used against you at further proceedings associated with your case. I want to inform you of the charges that you currently face. In essence, you are charged with 4 counts of felony murder as outlined in the state warrants that have been issued against you. I want to make you aware that the maximum penalty for felony murder,
so small.
So for each count, the maximum penalty is that you could be punishable by death, by imprisonment for life, without parole, or by imprisonment for life, with the possibility of parole. If you have any questions about these charges, then I would urge you to discuss those with your attorney. I would invite you, Mr. Harmon, to inform the court as to whether there's a request for bond at this time.
At this time, Your Honor, there is not a request for bond. We will file the appropriate motions if that becomes necessary.
I'd be like,
All right.
hey, Jen.
An indictment by the grand jury for most felony offenses or accusations. Well, you have the right to receive an indictment for these offenses. And I assume Mr. Brad Smith is here on behalf of the DA's office, and he is our district attorney. And he's accompanied by Ms. Patricia Brooks, who is his chief assistant. A preliminary hearing, you'll have the right also to a preliminary hearing, unless you make a bond, which of course at this point there's no bond being requested, or unless you waive such a hearing. You have the right to a speedy and public trial by a judge or jury. You have the right to confront and cross-examine all witnesses.
It's like, don't be a Sarah Boone.
You have the right to call witnesses on your own behalf and testify in your own defense if you so choose. As you sit here in this courtroom today, under the law, you are presumed innocent. Your refusal to testify at any point in any proceeding will not be used against you in determining whether you are guilty or not guilty.
I like this judge.
Counsel, let me just inquire as to whether there are any other items that the court should address
Sarah Boone's
before
been
we
getting on
conclude
my
this preliminary hearing.
taking a long time, quirky queen.
No, Your Honor.
Well, I do have one piece of information to convey to the
I've
court.
waited
There was
all
a
my
development
fucking life
yesterday
for that trial.
afternoon that makes it necessary for
And
our
I still
office to
think
have
we'll-
alternate counsel appointed, and arrangements
Probably
have already
next
been made in that
October.
regard. I've already explained that to Mr. Gray, and alternate counsel will be appointed by the end of the day today.
All right, thank you very much, Ms. Donna Seagraves. All right, then with that, this hearing is concluded, and you may escort this defendant out.
Bye, defendant. Okay, the attorney's exceptionally tall. Thank you, Clint.
Good morning, sir. Are you Mr. Colin Gray? Am I pronouncing your first name correctly?
That's
Mr. Gray, my
Daddy.
name is Curry Mingledorf. I'm assigned to preside over this morning's proceeding. This is your first appearance hearing. And at this hearing, I'm first going to ask you just a few questions, and then I'm going to advise you of your rights and also let you know about a preliminary hearing that's been scheduled for you. Why don't you just state your name, please? All right, pull the microphone down, please. There you go.
Thank you, Queen.
All right, and how old are you, Mr. Gray?
54.
And are you able to read and write and understand the English language without any
Yes, sir.
difficulty?
Yes, sir.
How far did you go in school?
11th grade GED.
Okay. And I note that you have counsel seated with you at the table. You understand that you have the right to be represented by an attorney at all times for this and all future proceedings in your case?
Yes, sir.
And you understand that, of course, if you cannot afford an attorney, that the public defender will be appointed to represent you upon your request.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
All right. And counsel, would you identify yourself, please, for the record?
Donna Seagraves, we are going to have new counsel assigned to Mr. Gray later today.
Thank you, Chris.
All right. Thank you. All right. Okay. Sorry. Just need to make sure that the system is working. And all right. So
Yeah, I
the
think
following
it's
aren't questions that I'm going to ask. I'm just
There's like a
informing you of some
cross
things. You have the right to remain silent.
so there's a
Anything you say can be
with it.
used against you at further hearings or at a trial on the charges that you're facing. For this hearing, you're not going to be questioned about facts and circumstances surrounding your charges. You are currently charged with, and you'll be provided with copies of the warrants if you don't already have them. You're currently charged with 2 counts of felony murder in the second degree. You're charged with 4 counts of involuntary. You're charged with a felony cruelty to children in the second degree. Now, for these offenses, for the felony murder counts in the second degree, felony murder in the second degree, the maximum penalty for each count is up to 30 years imprisonment. For felony involuntary manslaughter, of course, again, there are 4 counts. The maximum penalty for each of those offenses is 10 years imprisonment. For the 8 felony cruelty to children counts, the maximum penalty under the law for each of those 8 counts is 10 years imprisonment, for a maximum total possible penalty for the charges that you currently are facing of 180 years imprisonment. If you have questions about these charges, which I assume that you will, the court urges you to discuss those with your attorney.
Welcome to our team, Sarah Lou.
Let me inquire as to whether there's a motion for bond if
Getting closer to 1,000.
Gray is moving for bond at this time.
No, sir, not at this time. We will allow alternate counsel to make that decision.
All right, thank you. I also need to inform you that you have the right to an indictment by a grand jury, and you also have the right to a preliminary hearing unless you make bond or waive such a hearing. You have the right to a speedy and public trial by a judge or jury. You have the right to confront and cross-examine all witnesses. You have the right to call witnesses on your own behalf and testify in your own defense if you so choose. I want to make it clear to you, Mr. Gray, that you are presumed innocent. Your refusal to testify at any point cannot be used against you in determining whether you are guilty or not guilty. I mentioned the first appearance hearing a moment ago. That is being set for you for December 4th, 2024 at 8:30 a.m. Currently that's set to take place in the Magistrate Court of Barrow County. It could be subject to change, but I just want you to know that that is the date that we currently have. In fact, counsel, could you approach, please? I have
his is more complex because he wasn't there.
Let's see, I need to scratch this out.
He looks like he gives no Scooby-Doo. Hey, MZ.
Okay, and the signal is freezing up a little bit there. Something totally out of our control, but we're going to continue watching it. So we've got Colin Gray, 54 years old, the father of the Georgia school shooting suspect, Colt Gray, said by authorities to have known the dangers with his son and yet still provided him with a semi-automatic rifle that they say was used to carry out that massacre in which 4 people were killed, 9 others injured. Here are the 4 deceased victims, 2 students and 2 school teachers. Now, this hearing is what's called an arraignment. This is the first arraignment that any criminal defendant will have after their arrest. So this is a quick appearance where you hear they're advised of their rights. The judge asks them if they can read, write, understand the English language, understand the charges against them. The judge informs them of the charges, what they are, and then asks their position on bond. And in both of these cases, neither one of them has requested a bond. I would say that's a very smart move. We're going to get back into the courtroom in just a moment. Stay with us.
Hey, John.
We continue our breaking news coverage this morning. I'm your host, Julie Grant. Thank you for watching Court TV Live. We're witnessing history this morning. Let's let this sink in because we have another parent being accused of criminal liability in the actions of their child in a school massacre. We saw this first in Michigan, and we watched 2 trials playing out for James and Jennifer Crumbley because of the actions of their son, Ethan Crumbley, in the murders he carried out at Oxford High School. Now, today, we're seeing even more history as that landmark case in Michigan has now paved the legal road to have more cases like it. And now, sadly, here we are with an eerily similar prosecution of a parent providing their dangerous child with a firearm.
Who does that?
Even when they are said to have known the dangers. That is the allegation for Colin Gray, who is the father of Colt Gray, the Apalachee High School shooting suspect. The kid just transferred to the school 2 weeks before this incident, where he is said to have murdered 4 people and seriously wounded 9 others. Thank goodness those 9 others are going to make a full recovery per the local sheriff. And this morning, these 2 are both being arraigned in criminal court. Colt was arraigned at 8:30. He's being tried as an adult per Georgia law. And now it's Dad's turn. We had a little bit of an interference with the signal moments ago. It's repaired. Let's return to the courtroom now.
This document discusses bond and gives the date of the preliminary hearing, and I guess I could sign that, and he can just get a copy of it. And then the warrant.
It's not very organised.
So, and I would like for him to sign it. Please.
Sign right there, just so you're getting a copy of this. He is giving you a copy. He's give you a copy of all the ones. Do you want me to grab his copy? And the page continues.
Sounds like he's crying.
And are these his copies of the warrants?
Those are provided, and they say service copies on them, so I assume that they're for him. Sergeant Prisco, do you concur with that? Is that what those copies are for?
That's a shooter.
Those are for the detention center? So he's got his own copies, or he'll have them provided? All right, so the detention center wants to hold on to those.
Thing is,
All right, let me, and thank you, Missy Graves. I want to certainly acknowledge the presence of our district attorney, Mr. Brad Smith, and he's assisted by his chief assistant, Patricia Brooks. Is there anything else, counsel, that the court needs to address that I have neglected to address?
No, Your Honor.
not a clue.
No, sir, not at this time.
All right, I do want to thank those who are in the gallery who have an interest and who have appeared. I appreciate the decorum that's been maintained throughout this proceeding, or both of these proceedings today. And with that, this matter is adjourned.
The attorney who's going to represent you, I think his name is James Rogers. We're going to have the official later today. He'll come and see you probably the first part of next week.
Okay.
Hey, Mark. How are you? So let me just end the YouTube. So yeah, I don't know why one has got more charges than the other. I kind of feel like perhaps maybe it's his age. Even though they said they were trying him as an adult. Are they? Are they really? So we'll have to wait and see now how this pans out. But I wanted to bring you the first sort of hearings, because more and more is coming out every day. So you know what the armchair detectives do on these streets, on the YouTube ones at least. If you know, you know, and if you don't, then you're lucky. But they'll do this sort of stuff. And I think that they've tried to call in law enforcement, and they've kind of just gone, yeah. And then when they've got there, there's been tension, but they haven't actually acted on it. And I'm just like, what the hell? It's insane to me. So, guys, on the YouTube streets, that's going to be your lot for today. You've had a double whammy over there. You've had Sarah Boone. I mean, we already did the Boones over here. We did those last night, so we caught up eventually with the hearings. Old Gypsy Rose is still knocking around out there. I'll probably perhaps might come on and cover her on my YouTube at some point. But I will see you guys on the YouTube street again. Just come on over to the TikTok street. There's like nearly 100 of us in here. We're all friendly. We don't give refunds though. Just kidding. But come over and you'll be happy that you've come and joined us over on the Talk Street. So good night to everyone on YouTube, and don't forget to subscribe if you haven't yet subscribed, but you are watching over there. I'll see you soon. Okay, right, that's